and welcome to Murphy's Garden, and you join us back home in our own garden. We had a fantastic few days away at the Chelsea Flower Show, and it was an absolutely incredible show. Really enjoyed it, and I hope those of you that watched it enjoyed it too, and it's given you lots of ideas as it has me. So we're back home, and it's now the beginning of June, and although we're busy doing jobs as we always are, it's important just to stop and reflect and actually take in the garden as it is today and just enjoy it, because it is looking really lovely. So I want to take you on a garden tour, an early summer garden tour. So very excited because we're going to do a bit of work with the drone. Joshua's home, my son, who flies his drone, and he's going to do some aerial shots. So we'll begin up in the air and we're going to have a look at the garden from above, just so you can get the context of where each of the areas of the garden is. And then we'll land back down again and we'll look at the garden in more detail, the borders and individual flowers and things. So up we go. So I think we'll start our tour from the air, because it's nice to see the garden from an aerial perspective. We don't often see it this way, but the nice thing about it is that you can see how the garden works and how it all interlinks, each space links with another part. So looking at it from above, and we're right up the very top, and you can see the plan with this part of the garden on the right hand side was that it had to run all the way up from the house, right the way up through the lower part, through the parterre, and right up to the top borders. And there's a line that runs all the way down through these three or four areas of the garden: the long path, the quadrant garden, the parterre, and the big long borders up the top. And there's a view that runs in symmetry all the way from the arch window, and we've tried to reflect the archway in the arch as you pass into the top part of the border. So when you stand at the very top, you can look through the arch, and the window is right in the centre of that arch. Heading up now through the Hornbeam Walk, so we head out of the back door and all the way up runs this walkway of hornbeam. So we put in one hornbeam row and then felt it would be far better to have a proper avenue, so we put in the secondary row, so it is catching up with the first row. And that leads up to the gravel path, which you can then access the rest of the garden from the gravel path. Now to the right hand side, so we've said about the very formal structure running up from the house, and the right hand side is more informal. But this part here we cut into the grass, because it was quite a large area of grass, but we cut into the grass to make this sort of rectangle, and that meant that the planting comes in much closer to you and you feel more sort of enveloped by the planting. So you can see this when we fly up high, you can see that the structure of this part of the garden. And we'll fly now up to the top borders and we'll pass over the parterre, and the parterre is again very formal, and it's got these four quadrants in which roses are planted. And then in the top borders we've got the big long herbaceous borders, and they're punctuated with these white obelisks, and at the moment we've currently got a seat at the end. We do plan to put in a little summer house at the end, and also I think we thought a nice rill of water would look good, and it would reflect the sky and just add a little bit of extra interest to this big area up the top, the large expanse of grass. So as you can see, this is a very formal looking garden, but we felt that was the right design for a very symmetrical looking Georgian house. So we'll head now to the area over here to the right, and this is the Sunken Garden, also quite a symmetrical looking part of the garden, and it's flanked with a row of lime trees. And then over here you'll see a seating area and a new area that's going to yet to be designed. So that's quite exciting. There's lots still to do there. And in behind the leading off from the Sunken Garden is the Woodland Garden, and it's a much more informal part. Quite difficult to fly in there really, but this is the new area that you can see. So it's really just a blank canvas, but we do plan to put in more curves and things. So this will be the right hand side of the garden is a bit more informal. And we'll fly now right up to the top borders, and you can make out the open
countryside that lies beyond our garden, and this accounts for our garden being a very, very windy garden, which I've mentioned many times. And we found that when we first moved in, anytime we tried to plant anything, it tended to get flattened by the wind. And so one of our priorities early on was to plant lots of hedging, which we've done, and that has created a kind of microclimate now within the garden. It's also attracted lots of birds to our garden, which is absolutely lovely, but it's meant that we can grow a greater variety of plants, and has slowed the wind down and made the garden, changed the feel of the garden considerably, and it made it a much more pleasant place to be. So I think we'll land back on terra firma and we'll continue our tour on foot.
So we'll begin our tour by heading up the Hornbeam Walk. She's got some planting here. This is Hemerocallis yet to come out, and here is the beautiful little geranium called Summer Skies. That's really pretty, and a nice little geum here at the front called Petticoats, I think it's called. So we'll carry on. Some of the roses, cuttings that I took of the Olivia rose, full of buds. And this is Jacob's Ladder, lots of Aquilegia and lupins, the red valerian. And this is a scabious called Nautica macedonica, very nice one. And the Johnson's blue geranium and some Hidcote lavender. And what you'll see up here is that with the sunlight, you'll see that the left hand side of the path is in quite heavy shade, whereas the right hand side is in more sun. And the problem we've got here is with the planting, it's quite difficult. We want to have some sort of uniformity of planting going up under the hornbeam and kind of get rid of this hodgepodge of planting. But the problem is trying to get plants that would be suitable for dry shade and also sort of dry sun. So lavender does particularly well on this side because it does get the sun, but it wouldn't do well on this side. So that's a consideration, something that we're trying to work on. I have got some Annabelle hydrangea. I've just put one in here just to try it this season and just see how it performs, if it manages to survive. This is Astrantia and also lots of alliums. These are the Purple Sensation alliums, and this Astrantia is called Jill Richardson. It's a lovely Astrantia. There's quite a big clump of it here, and of course that likes this dapple shade here as well. And lots of the Saxifraga. And as we head up, you'll see here we have got roses on this fence, but they do struggle. These were put in quite a long time ago, before the hornbeam was even in, so historically they've been in, but they don't perform. They try and get to the light by climbing up the hornbeam, so they will probably need to be moved. And this is a lovely clematis, and as we pan round, the sun's out now and you can see all the bearded irises and the lupins and the foxgloves. Everything's looking lovely, but we'll go into that area in a minute. We'll head up here. This is the Hylotelephium, which is also used to be called sedum. I have given it a bit of the Chelsea chop. And this is a peony. This is called Latiflora. It's just starting to drop some of its petals, but it's been very nice. And the pots at the top here, I've only just planted them out, so they're not terribly spectacular. But what is spectacular is this David Austin rose. This is the original Olivia rose, and it's a stunner. Smells really good too. Big blooms, and when they're quite small, the blooms are so heavy that sometimes it struggles. But as the plant gets more established and the stems get stronger, it's really good. And we'll head now up the long gravel walk, and this is looking really good because the Nepeta is in full flower and the box is looking very bright green and vibrant. So the Nepeta is full of bees. The bees absolutely love it. And just on this side we've got a Campanula, which is just about to come out, and these irises and lots of more Aquilegia. and this is the eupatorium on this side, which is getting quite big now. And if we just look here, these are the pots that we did the video on the baseless pots. So these are osmanthus, and they can go to osmanthus buckwoodii, and they can put their roots down into the soil below, but obviously that will take a while for them to do that. So in the initial few years it's important to keep them well watered and fed, and I've been doing that, and it's rewarded me with lots of lovely new growth, coming from that, so that's good. The I've got some of the fleabane or erigeron underneath, erigeron profusion, so that's yet to get going really, a little bit at the front starting to flower, but so that's looking good. And if I pan back round, you'll see that, so this garden has got 3 rows of peach trees. We've got the 2 hornbeam here, and then along this gravel path we've got this peach lime row, and you can see that it's put on loads and loads of growth, and it will need to be trimmed and cut soon. It's getting quite shaggy, so that'll be a job for the next month or so. And then at the end of this path we've done a bit of work here just to improve this. So we bought this big pot several years ago, and we bought it originally for the parterre, but it just didn't look quite right in the parterre. It was a bit too, the scale wasn't quite right, it was a bit too big. So we put it at the end of this path. It looks good because it's big, it really is a good focal point at the end of this path, but it kind of just needed something. So what we decided to do, we thought it's quite difficult to put plants in it, because if we plant it out it would take a lot to fill it, but also when it was planted you wouldn't be able to get the plants back out again, it would be difficult to get them out. So what we've come up with is we had this old plastic pot, which is really good because it's really nicely weathered and it's got all this kind of dappled colouring on it, which looks good. We tipped out an old blueberry that was in it, and we measured it, and it fits in really well. And what we've done, we did a short video just showing what we did. We made a little kind of stool which we put in at the bottom of the pot, and this plastic pot sits on top of that, so it doesn't put any pressure on this nice pot. We don't want a lot of heavy weight on that, so that's held inside. And we just dug up a clump of hostas. We've got these big leaved hostas, so we just dug up some and popped it in. It's doing really, really well. And then we have just put this copper tape round the top of the pot just to hopefully stop any slug damage. And I see that the hosta is starting to flower, so that's nice. And at the back we've got this trellis which I painted green, and then a mirror as well. We've had this mirror for a long time, but it had got damaged, so we fixed that, and that just reflects the light back up the garden. And we'll head now into the Woodland Garden. And the Woodland Garden, as you enter the Woodland Garden, this is the lovely lilac. It smells beautiful, really, really lovely, and we have tried to sort of remove some of the lower branches. Perhaps we need to remove a few more once it's finished flowering, because it gives this nice multi-stem effect. And the plant in front of this is epimedium. I love epimediums. The foliage on them is just beautiful. This is a really good clump. It does have little yellow flowers, and this is a euphorbia, and more hostas, lots of ferns, a pittosporum in there, which is Tom Thumb, and then this lovely grass. This is a nice grass. I don't actually know what it's called, but it looks really good here. Now these are some camasias, which camasias, when I did the research for the camasia video, it said that camasias don't self-seed. Well, they definitely do, because these have appeared. I think I did shake some seeds into this area a couple of years ago, and those have appeared, so they definitely do. Philadelphus there, and this is the Betula Giacomonte. This is a multi-stemmed one. It's starting to get the nice white stems, and the other single-stemmed ones, which have been in a bit longer, have already got the lovely white stems, and you can see that they're getting really quite big, and they cast this lovely dappled shade, which you can just see on Murphy's back there. So we'll continue through lots of the London Pride, Saxifraga, ferns, and this is a paracanthus. So I'm trying to grow, I've got several paracanthus, I'm trying to get them to establish, and then I'll put them covering up this ugly fence line. That would be quite nice if we can get coverage on that. Choicea mock orange, got a bit damaged in the winter, and this archway is covered in ivy, which looks quite nice. This is interesting. These are the diorama which have appeared. I don't know how they got there because they were over by the pond, also called whirling butterflies, and I have got some in the big borders that I moved up there. Some more purple sensations which have self-seeded, and these on the right are the limelight hydrangea, and you can just see in the background the Clematis montana has really got going and romped all the way up to the top of this cherry tree. It took a while to get it to actually go, but once it did, it really has gone up very well. And the London Pride, more of the London Pride here, this nice frothy display. This is Carokia. And then here we've got the Cotinus, which we planted just in the autumn, so that's lovely to see that that's back in leaf and flower again, and contrasted with this yellow grass. And more of the scabious. This is the same scabious as before, and I'll just pan around here, and this is the Ruum, ornamental rhubarb, which is very architectural. It's got these big flowers on top. We brought that from our previous house. And this is Murphy. This is the lamb's ear, and Pulsatilla vulgaris, and the Hornbeam. And also what I want to show you is this Stipa gigantea. So in the sunlight, this is just lovely, very iridescent, it catches the light and looks really good with more of the scabious next to it. And the Hornbeam is the Hornbeam. We cut that back last year and it came back lovely new growth, and then it got damaged by the winter that we've just had. Whether it was more tender because it had been cut back, I don't know, but I have cut it right back again, so it's coming back again. So nice new red growth. This is Hornbeam jester. And on this side you can just see that we've got the elderflower, which is the Sambuca nigra. And interesting to see, we've got lots of elderflowers on it, so when this establishes we'll be able to make pink elderflower cordial. So we will make elderflower cordial. We might use a few of those flower heads, but I think we'll need to get some more in the hedgerows. And this is Pittosporum tenifolium variegatum, and some hydrangeas, and the passion flower, the passiflora, unfortunately was covering this archway and was always lovely, but it died, another casualty of this winter. So I did see another plant when I was out the other day, and I bought this one. It's a nice plant, so, and it's actually got one little flower on it, so we've put that in and given it a good feed and water, and hopefully it will do what the other one did and cover this archway soon. And on this side of the path we've got the box on one side, and then a massive hydrangea on this side, and they do suffer from the dry weather, so I've given them a really good watering, and then I've put some compost over the top just as a bit of a mulch to try and lock in the moisture. So this part of the garden is our pond area, so it's quite a cool part of the garden. It can be quite windy in this part of the garden, but it's quite nice to sit here on a hot day and just look at the fish, because the fish are coming up to just eat their food. And in the background you can see behind me the Clematis montana, which is climbing up the cherry tree, so that's looking absolutely beautiful. And then we've started some of the pots off, so I've got some pots here in front of me. These are quite high pots, which is good because when you're sitting you want to sort of be at eye level with the planting. So all in all, the ceanothus is out flowering, is looking nice, and the paracanthus too. And behind me here is the Stipa gigantea, and it's really nice putting it here because it just catches the evening light and looks really good. And this bit of the garden requires a bit of work, because what we'd like to do is put some big French doors on that outbuilding, and then we'd like to redesign this area, but that'll be a job for later on because we've got some work. We've got a cellar under the house, in this part of the house, which we intend to dig out the cellar. That's another story which I'll explain when we come to do it in the summer, but we will be having to use this bit of the garden just for the spoils that we dig out. So this area will be redesigned. But here in the meantime we've got these Amilankia canadensis, and underneath them we've got the it used to be called Gora Lindimeri, it's now called a Nuthra, and that's quite kind of free moving. We've got some grasses, Strathalin krill caerulea, and lots of Verbena bonariensis. So this area is quite kind of naturalistic, and it's got the box underneath the Amilankia, but I think this area will be getting changed in the longer term. So we'll head now up. We've got these beech hedges which are really well established now. We only put them in a couple of years ago, but it's good to see that this is probably about the height that we'll keep them at. And then we'll head now into the quadrant garden. So this is looking good. This one was a bit weak, so I've redesigned, done quite a lot to this side. We've got a potentilla here, lots of the geums which have just gone over. This is totally tangerine, some verbascum, a little white geranium. We've got lots of little seedlings, lots of weeds as well. But this is these are some salvias. It's called Salvia viridas blue, which I've grown from seed, so that will fill in. And this is another peony, and I've actually moved this peony from elsewhere in the garden. And this is called Peony Felix Cruz. And we've got lots of digitalis everywhere, and lupin, Cicerincum there, some achillea. And this is a nice grass. This is Miscanthus Yakashima dwarf, and in the autumn it has these nice, the nice plumes of the kind of flower head. Some more Astrantia, hydrangea, and what I have done, I've moved a lot of the hemerocallis. There's a lot of orange, just the common hemerocallis in here, which I've taken a lot of it out, and I have replaced it. I've got some more different varieties of hemerocallis in different colours, so I've put those in. I stuck them in each of these quadrants. Can't remember where I put them, but we'll see how they do. And then this border again, I've done a bit of editing because it was a bit flat. I think the irises are new, and I put some of the aconitum, the monk's hood, in here for a bit of purple. And then lots of geraniums, lots of foxgloves, Allium Christophii, and then these are the ballerina roses. These are the original roses that were in the parterre, and we just didn't quite like them in the parterre. They didn't look right, so we've moved them here, and they do work much better in a mixed border. And this is Gypsophilia, and a white, I can't remember the name of that geranium, but lots to see. And this planting is quite delicate, and you get up close to these borders, so it's quite nice to have smaller things in here, whereas the big borders tend to have big swathes of things. This is Eupatorium, so you see how much it's grown since we did a recent video here. It was just up to my sort of ankles. And this is a good plant, you can just make it out. It's called Cephalaria gigantea. It's a big yellow flowering scabious. It's really, really lovely. And lots of monk's hood or aconitum, which gives these nice pointy spires. Just as the lupins start to go over, these will take over that sort of pointy spire look that's needed in the borders. Irises, blue irises at the back, and lots of little itty bitty plants that I've put in. These are all the things that we've grown from seed. This is Persicaria superba bistorta, and this is a lovely Salvia caridona, I believe. And then similar planting on this side, lots and lots of alliums here, which have self-seeded. This is a beautiful Thylictrum. We got that just last year when we went to the Tatton Flower Show, and it's really established. It's called White Splendid, I think. Yeah, and lots more to see, lots to come out here, campanula and various things, and lots of foxgloves and more verbascum at the back. And this is my pot, so I did take out the pansies, which were still absolutely lovely, but I've taken them out and replaced it with the summer bedding, so just geraniums and lobelia and the euchera, which stays in here all the time. I'm really excited to show you this area. So this is the Sunken Garden. As you know, the trellis has gone, and that really kind of opened our eyes to see this area as a really lovely area. It's one of the very first that we planted. We put in these Portuguese laurels. These are Prunus lusitanica, and at this time of year they've got these beautiful little flowers. This is a tree, it can be planted as a tree. You can grow it as a hedge, makes a lovely, lovely hedge. I absolutely love it. It's got these very glossy leaves, much prettier than normal common laurel. It's really, really lovely. It holds its leaves, it's evergreen. So one really worth considering if you want a formal structural tree or a hedge. And what we've done, we've put 4 trees in parallel to each other, giving formal structure. And while we were at Chelsea, actually, I came back and a surprise for me was that Alistair has been working on this. So he's edged we've been meaning to do this for a while, but he's done it. So he's put these lovely little edging stones in and filled the area with slate, because I was constantly having to weed it. It needed an awful lot of weeding. So that should solve that problem. He's put some weed membrane down to stop the weeds coming through, and then done quite a thick layer of lovely slate, and then edged it with these little stones. So I think that really frames each tree and makes it look special. So I'll just pan around and show you the overall effect. So the view facing this way, we thought it would be quite nice to take a little bit of this hedge out, which we'll do. We'll wait to do this in the autumn. I don't want to start digging up box hedging at this time of year because it's too hot and it wouldn't survive. But we plan to take a little bit out, and then we're going to put some stone slabs in, and we're going to move the white bench that you'll see in another part of the garden. We're going to move that down to here to make a lovely little seating area, which is quite secluded, and underneath this lime, the bleached lime. We won't put it directly under the lime because lime does drip a kind of sticky sap, so we don't want that on the seat, but the seat will sit forward, perhaps with a little coffee table and somewhere just to come and sit and linger on the journey through the garden. And particularly at this time of year, because the view as I'm looking at it now is of the Clematis montana alba. It's a white one that's gone right up into the cherry tree and looks absolutely stunning. So that would be quite nice, I think, just to sit and enjoy that view. The area behind me is full of weeds because normally I plant this out. Last year I planted it out with white cosmos and it did look good, but I've left it this year because we did plan to kind of get on and do this, but we haven't quite got to it, but we'll do it soon. And we'll head now into one of my favourite areas, and this is the parterre. And the parterre is, each of the areas is filled with just one rose, and it's another David Austin rose, and this is called Desdemona, and it's beautiful, and it opens this, it has these lovely blush pink rose buds which open to an almost pure white flower. It's absolutely beautiful. And then up the obelisks we've got a small, very dainty little clematis called Princess Kate. And the whole area is flanked with box hedging, which is edged just with some pointy cone-shaped box as well, just to add a bit more interest. And from the parterre we'll head into the seating area. So the seating area is surrounded by yew hedging, and it's yet to fully establish. It's not quite the height of this hedging. It's got to get a bit taller yet, but when it does grow up it will make this area feel very, very cocooned and sheltered from the wind. So this is our seating area. We get the evening sunshine, so it's a nice place to sit for dinner in the evening. And we have this little corridor. This is like a hallway equivalent to in the house, where this is the entrance and exit from this area. And at the end of it we've got a holly tree, just a standard holly in a pot, and you come out here down the cobble path and then into the next part of the garden. And in front of you here is a standard yew. This is Taxus baccata fastigiate, so it's Irish yew, and you'll see that Alistair has put these stone edges round each of the yews, and it just really frames each of these trees, and it just gives it a bit more pizzazz, a bit more oomph, and looks really good. And these provide sort of punctuation throughout this part of the garden and valuable height as well. So we'll head now into the long borders. The long borders have just starting to go over a little bit, but they've been spectacular with all the Camasias. There's Camasias, there's lots of Aquilegia, granny bonnet. This one is a lovely little one. It's petticoat pink. This is verbascum, and you'll see at this time of year the caterpillars just come along and eat it all. They do this every year, but it doesn't matter. We've enjoyed the flowers, and the flowers are just going over. And then we've got the Stipa gigantea just coming through, and on each of the obelisks, these white obelisks which Alistair made, I've just taken cuttings of the Olivia rose, which, as we know, does very well in this garden, and I've just put it in the middle of each of these obelisks. So as that gets bigger, it will grow through the obelisk, and I think should look spectacular. And I thought it's quite nice to do all the same on each of the obelisks rather than different ones. Here's a lovely delphinium just flowering, and lots more spire-like plants in the form of digitalis, lupins, camasias. Those lupins are going over, so these borders will need a bit of sorting out soon. And here you'll see this is in transition, so we've taken up some of the grass, and we're going to extend this patio area out a little bit, and then we're going to put a summer house in this area, and that seat will move. I have planted out these containers, and panning around here we've got a lovely delphinium here at the back, purple, deep purple, and more lupins. And I love the way this beech hedge has just got that little fleck of purple in it every now and again, and I really like that. I didn't do that deliberately, it's just happened, but it looks good because there is a lot of purple in these borders. And this is the Stipa, and I plant Stipa front of border because it's very iridescent and see-through, and it looks good. And here, busy with bees, is the oriental poppy covered in bees. And so what we'll probably do with these borders, the Camasias are getting quite big and domineering, and although they're lovely, my concern last year with them was that I thought that some of the perennials, the later flowering perennials, didn't do so well, and I wasn't sure whether it was because of the very dry summer or whether it was because the Camasia bulbs are getting a bit too domineering, so we might have to just thin the Camasias out a little bit just to give the other plants a chance. And we'll head now through the yew hedge, and we'll go into the vegetable garden. And the vegetable garden, we've been quite busy doing things here. It's yet to establish really, but we've got some lettuces and radishes and dill and parsley here. The plan longer term is we are going to make some raised borders here. We just felt that would probably look a bit nicer. I've got lots of onions. I bought some onion sets, and then I forgot I'd bought them, and I bought some more. This is my poor eucalyptus tree which has died, another casualty of our winter. We've got some, this is my rather improvised frame that I made using the greenhouse frame. The greenhouse is all split and damaged, so I thought I'd utilise the frame and I'll make this, and I'll put some net over the top. This is just some kale. We've got some beans in here, some climbing beans. This is just some old spinach from last year. More onions. These are the raspberries, and we've got strawberries. And this is the blueberry, which I took out of that pot which I used where the hostas are, and I've put it in a nice, much bigger pot, so it should like it in there. Some rhubarb, some gooseberries which are just forming. Lots of gooseberries. Lovely, they're really tasty, and there's some red gooseberries as well. And strawberries are forming, and there's lots of black currants. And we've got the espalier trees along the back, so we've got pears, we've got apples, and here we've got just a standard discovery apple tree which is in a baseless pot. And here we've got some, what have we got? Rocket and more spinach coming through, some parsnips, some peas and some broad beans. And then we've got the potatoes, and we're growing this year Charlotte, Mary Piper and Sarpo Mirror, and they're all doing well. And more kale and we've got sweet corn and French beans, and this is the Belotti beans, and we've got some leeks which are very, very tiny, you can just about see them. And then we head up here. This is the kind of squash area, although we have got some broad beans. These are winter sown broad beans, so they should be our first ones that we'll eat. These are the courgettes and Romanesco, which we really like. They were Sarah Raven seeds that we grew last year, and they were lovely. That one's starting to come through. And then we've got butternut squashes and pumpkins, the black futsu pumpkins, which are fabulous, really like those. And these are little shallot onions. And this area is what we affectionately refer to as Hospital Corner. So this is the nursery, this is maternity services. These are all the little seedlings and things that I've got growing on, and a lot of these do need to get into the ground, but the reason I haven't planted them is because it's so dry, and I was waiting for a little bit of rain, which we haven't had. And as well, in Hospital Corner we have all the casualties. I think this one is end of life. This is an Aeneaso that's completely died. And then we've also got my lovely standard bay trees. One of them is looking rather dead, unfortunately, so I don't think that's going to make it back from the brink. And then if we head into the greenhouse is full of tomatoes and aubergines and courgettes and gherkins and chilies and coriander and basil, and yeah, so everything in here is doing very well indeed. And this is the area that we've done numerous videos on, because we've been working hard on this area. So this is just a blank canvas now, ready for the autumn when we can start planting it. We plan to remove all of the grass in this area, and we're going to have lots of trees and lots of shrubs and things. This is the bit that we have started, so we've got hydrangea and this lovely viburnum Kilimanjaro, and this is Pittosporum Tom Thumb and a skimmia there, Mahonia at the back, and this is Cornus Midwinter Fire and a Corylus. And I've just moved this, this is another Pittosporum. So we have put roses all along the trellis line that we moved. I don't know whether they're going to take or not, because it was really the wrong time to plant them. The Woollerton Old Hall is doing well, the others are struggling somewhat, so if they don't make it, it is an opportunity to choose new roses and perhaps ones specifically for the area, rather than using old ones that we've had, which have been growing, in fairness, for about 10 years already, so it might be best to get new ones, I don't know. So I think we'll finish our tour at the front garden. We have got a lot still to do in the front garden, but I just wanted you to see the roses which are behind me. These are more David Austin roses, which seemed again to do very well in our poor sandy soil, and this rose is called Scarborough Fair, so it's very floriferous, absolutely beautiful. So thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed that tour, and join us again in the next video. Bye for now.